So today we're going to be joined by a colleague of mine from David Critchley, who's from the Police Digital Service. And David's role is a cyber risk and third-party assurance for policing manager, that's a long title, within the cyber directorate here at PDS. And we're going to be talking about third-party assurance process, T-PAP. As organisations, including all of those in law enforcement and policing, increasingly rely on third-party vendors for various services, there's a critical need for a robust cyber assurance programme. Within UK Policing, PDS administrates the process to help assess and to mitigate cybersecurity risks posed by third-party relationships. And with the growing complexity of supply chains and interconnected services, even the low-risk vendors can introduce significant vulnerabilities if not properly managed. The protection of the data and the systems we use in policing is absolutely critical. The public entrust policing with the most sensitive personal data in their lives, with the full and reasonable expectation that we will keep it and the systems we use will keep it secure. However, we're increasingly seeing the impact of vulnerabilities within IT systems when you see cyber attacks on organisations and household names that we all deal with. So today I'm going to be using some complex terms to try and explain the importance of this as we go through things. So David, perhaps I can bring you onto screen now and your deck. Perhaps you can start off by explaining exactly what the T-PAP process is trying to solve and why are we doing it?
Yeah, afternoon. The T-PAP process is trying to understand the risk. It's trying to look at the supply chain, the suppliers that we use, understand enough about that supplier to be able to assess what the risks are for using them in conjunction with police data, allowing them to run systems that use police data, making sure they understand the need for integrity in terms of that data, that they understand the responsibility they have in looking after that data along with policing, and that they understand the issues and understand how they are meant to respond when they're looking after privileged data.
And in terms of that point of view, what are the risks of not doing due diligence on suppliers and other law enforcement agencies for the public we serve?
So it's not just to the individual organisation that is using a supplier, that the risk can travel down the supply chain or up the supply chain. So we need to be sure that there are clearances are in place, that we understand who we are not only contracting with, but who they're contracting with, that there is no unauthorised sharing between contractors and subcontractors and such like. So we have a clear understanding of what is actually operating in the policing space.
And in terms of risks, what sort of risks are we just talking about in terms of this?
Looking at the confidentiality of police records, looking after the data on the Violent and Sexual Offenders Register, the Police National Computer, all the sensitive systems that PDS, the Home Office and police manage on behalf of policing, the individual data within police systems because they are onwardly connected to the national systems. It is the whole ecosystem of policing data, making sure that it's handled responsibly, used only for the purpose that it was collected for, and that only the people who are cleared and trusted actually have access to it.
So we'll go on to the next slide now, and there's been some notable examples. So what's the scale of risk we're talking about and what the impacts could be?
Yeah, so these are some famous ones really. Redcar and Cleveland was an extremely expensive data ransomware attack. It cost them around $10.5 million to resolve and took months and months and months to resolve. Redcar
There's
one,
the law firm ones as well, isn't there, David?
Yeah, the law firm one is a present problem. It's gathered pace recently. It's now 70% greater this year than it was last year, and that's the Law Society's figures. There's over 450 attacks this year on law firms, and these are organisations that policing statistically has to share data with. But also, it's not just criminal organisations that are a focus for policing. When the French police were doxed, it was a hacking organisation, a protest group that got into their networks and published the personal details of French police officers. So policing is a particular target for this sort of activity, whether it's criminal activity or whether it's protest groups or another organisation.
And I think the reality is that policing is just another target in this as well. I think everybody will be aware of the issues that M&S have had over the last few months, and there's lots of media reports and speculation about the costs of that, aren't there?
Yeah, we just happen to be a particularly attractive target to some people.
Absolutely. So David, what is the T-PAP process, and how do we address tackling and protecting the data against some of the issues that we've covered so far?
The T-PAP process starts with a series of questions. We serve up to a supplier who wants to work with PDS or work with the policing national systems, a series of questions, and these will range from HR and network security, the governance of the organisation, their use of AI, financial considerations, a whole gamut of questions. It's about 200 questions that are asked.
And I'm just flashing the process up on screen now.
Yeah.
And that's a simplified view of it.
It is, yeah. But we will look at an organisation and say what role are they going to perform in policing, and how much risk is attached to that, and we will do an assessment that's proportionate to the role that they're going to do. And so they'll answer the question sets. We'll do an analysis of that question set. And then, if necessary, we will also go out and do physical inspections of their premises, should we need to do that, and for want of a better term, kick the tires on their physical security. But it's important to know that we are not credit scoring an organisation. We are not saying, well, you haven't got 85%, so therefore you can't work for policing. What we're saying is you need to be compliant in the areas where there are concerns when looking at the role they're going to be playing. So there will be, for example, if we're doing the due diligence on a public body, then most of the financial questions in the questionnaire won't really be relevant. They won't make sense. So we won't worry about that side of it because it bears no risk, because it's not relevant to the to the program in hand. So we are trying to produce a process of risk discovery rather than credit scoring.
Yeah, and we'll come to a visualization of what the risks look like in a second, and we've got a 3D model to show. But what does T-PAP look like for the wider policing in the future, and how it's moving forward?
So T-PAP is a generic term for third-party assurance. There are a number of forces that use various tools to do this. We are hoping to provide a bureau for policing so that we can actually take on some of that burden, and we can become a third-party assessor for police forces as well as for ourselves and for the national systems. But some forces have already bought tooling and are doing it for themselves as well. And we're hopefully that we will be able to share those assessments, because we don't want to have to, every time that an organisation wants to contract with the police force, they will have to go through this process. Well, if we can share that with their permission, then they become assured for use by policing as opposed to by Cheshire or Lancashire, whatever the forces they're actually working with now.
And a classic question that we always get is if you're a supplier in the market, how do you go about third-party assurance, or is it the customer, the force, who starts that ball rolling? Where does that fit into the story?
We will start the process rolling. So when an organisation tenders, there will be some initial questions, but once they get through the first part of the tender, then we will contact them. We will send them the question set, and we'll start it rolling after that.
And that addresses one of the questions, and please do keep your questions coming in. A question from Lee was about, could they have a copy of the questions? That's done at the time of when we actually kick the process off, because it is a living environment, isn't it, that constantly changes in terms of making sure you're up to date with the risks.
It is. The tool we use at the moment, called Risk Ledger, does actually publish its question sets, so you can actually see that if you go onto Risk Ledger's website. So at the moment, that's the tool we're using. So you can go and have a look at it for yourself if you want to.
So I think it is important to understand the scale of the challenges and the interconnectivity of policing. So we're just going to pop up a slide of the position it was. Could you explain what we're actually seeing here, and then we'll come to your live slide in a moment.
So this is beginning of 2023, when we've been using Risk Ledger for third-party assurance for about 6 months, I suppose, and that gives you a sort of diagram of where I think we are to the left-hand side, and you can see all the sort of ecosystem that we're working in. These are all the data points are organisations that we either work with or people that we work with. So third or fourth or fifth party suppliers. That was 2 years ago. It has changed quite significantly now. It looks very different now. Do you want me to?
Yeah, do you want to screen share?
I'll show you what is on my screen. Hopefully this will work.
Through the magic of Teams, here it comes. I can see it, and I'll pop you on screen now with it.
Yeah. So we're this yellow ball here in this infrastructure, and this is what it looks like now. And you can see it's getting more and more complex all the time. So these are all the organisations that we work with and the interconnections between them. Potentially weaknesses in any one of those organisations can have an effect across parts of this infrastructure. So, and that's what we're trying to resolve. The fact that the questions we ask not only ask about a company's policies and process to do with themselves, but also what third-party assurance they do on other organisations, because we want to understand that they understand the risks involved in contracting with other parties as well, and we don't get a chain reaction through the whole community.
Absolutely, and we'll pop the slide deck back available and put us back on screen now, because I've seen that slide moving around, and it is quite, when you zoom into it and you look at the interconnections of different companies and the organisations they deal with, and the potential of risk being introduced by a completely different non-law enforcement sector, is something to think, oh yeah, where we are. And I do keep going back to the point that the public really do entrust us with data that they do not want to get lost, that it's very sensitive, and the impact of the loss of police data or impact of non-access to our systems can be a significant problem. We've had a question in here from Adam, who's asking, does that mean that T-PAP scores and compliance will be a requirement for entry for all government frameworks?
Not necessarily our T-PAP for government frameworks, but absolutely government frameworks will have third-party assurance conducted on them, yeah.
And another question that's come in from Peter is asking, in the context of T-PAP, what is the definition of a third party? Would it be the Home Office, HMRC, etc., PDS themselves?
Any organisation that is not PDS itself will be a third party, whether they're a government organisation, a commercial organisation, charity, any organisation that is not us would be considered a third party. Some obviously will be considered easier to third party assure than others, but they will all be third parties and they will all go through assurance.
A question from Sarah is asking us, will there be a secure list of who's been T-PAP'd and PDS assured, so that forces know to save us on duplicating on the assurance. I'm sure that suppliers get fatigued by that. I think that's what you're talking about with the Bureau, is it?
It is, yes. I mean, forces already ring us up and say, do you have any information on so-and-so organisation? And as long as that organisation is happy for us to share that information, we will do so. We do the same with the Home Office as well, because we share so many suppliers. As long as that organisation is happy for us to divulge that information, we would do that.
And again, a question here from James from South Wales Police asking about types of accreditation should people be looking for. Cyber Essentials Plus certificates, ISO 27001.
Absolutely.
Those are things looking for, but that doesn't mean they are assured either, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. That certification is part of the question set. We do ask questions on whether they have those. We would expect them to be able to show us their certification to make sure it's in date and it's in the right scope. It's worth saying that whenever we ask these questions, we do require evidence. We don't just take it on faith that they have exercises and manuals and accreditation that they say they have. We do actually require proof of that.
And the assurance is a point-in-time check at that point, isn't it? It doesn't mean it's the end of the process either.
No, it's a renewable process. So every year, we would expect organisations to keep their records up to date. Every year, we'll prompt them to say, you know, your certificate's out of date. Have you got a new one, or such like? And every 3 years, we'll do a more in-depth check. Certainly, if it's an organisation that we've decided we need to do a physical security check on, then we will go and do that every 3 years.
And there's another question which we often get from suppliers, this one. Can a third-party assurance be done in advance of a specific bid, i.e. could we put ourselves forward speculatively?
No, because I don't know why I'm assuring you. Because take for example a very large company that we may use on a number of different projects. We would assure them for the first project that we use them with, and we would look at the risk of that project. Now, when they bid for a second project, we would look at what they'd already provided and decide whether that was sufficient for this one as well, because the risks may be very different. The role they may be playing is very different. So you're being assessed for the role you're going to play in one instance. We can reuse the information, but it would have to be reassessed. So I can't really fully assess an organisation before they bid for something, because I don't know what the risks would be.
So you don't know the data, what's going to be processed, how it's going to be processed. We really need to, you're assessing the risk against a use case, not just assessing the risk of that vendor, third party, etc. It's what data is going to be exchanged and how is that kept secure, rather than...
Yes, I mean that there are some questions obviously that you could imagine that are asked around, as I said, certification and things like that, and whether you do IT health checks and how often, and those sorts of questions. You can imagine those sorts of what those questions would be, and you can make sure those are in place. But just because you can say those things doesn't necessarily mean it's third-party assurance.
Yeah, and there's a couple of questions here from Elizabeth, and I think this comes to how we define what we should be procuring as much as anything. So, what are the legal what are the legal implications of declining to work with a supplier because they cannot meet the NIST and CSF controls as part of a T-PAP?
That's not really for me to answer, because that's part of the contract. So it depends how the contract is written as to what the legal implications are. If you, the contracts should be put in place in a way that if an organisation cannot meet the requirements, then obviously we're not in a position to be able to work with them. However, just because you can't meet the requirements when we do the analysis doesn't mean that we can't go into dialogue with you as an organisation and say, we need you to fix this, this and this, or are there any mitigating circumstances that mean this question may not be a problem if it's not compliant with. It's not necessarily the end of the road. We can have dialogue to see how we can mitigate the risks that have been presented.
Yeah. And they may well be on the roadmap for solving all those things as well. Uh,
Indeed.
and maybe awaiting assessment on another part of it from somebody else to do this, of course.
Indeed.
There is a domino effect, isn't there? Liz was
Yes,
also
there is.
asking, how often should we revisit and renew our assessments of an onboarded supplier?
So we touch base every year. We make sure that they're updating their records every year. But every 3 years we do a cycle of checks. Obviously, if it's a very, very sensitive program, it may be more frequent than that. But on average, it will be every 3 years we do an in-depth check.
That's great. So this really is a huge part of our assurance approach. Now, there is more information on the PDS website. I've got it on screen now and how to navigate to it. And there is a little bit more information on there for Forces. But again, Forces can work with the PDS team to help open the door to David and the team. We have a process for making sure we're picking up on these questions on a very regular basis, making sure people are getting responses back to them. I've got couple more questions just popping in if I could, and then we'll start to think about some of the key messages that you want to give to both the Forces, our colleagues in law enforcement, and suppliers. But the question, does the assessment look at previous attacks and their security posture?
Yes, it does ask questions about the previous attacks. We do also do scanning to look at organizations, whether they've actually been attacked before, and look at what has been put in place by them to prevent it happening again. So yes, some of that work is done. Also, of course, we have the NMC, National Monitoring Centre, that also helps us with that side of it.
Absolutely, we have got the NMC who have particular skills and capability, and are another jigsaw part in the way that we protect the police data and systems that we've got left. We're really getting close to starting to get those invites out for people who want to go. If you have not yet registered, or you think you're not sure you have registered or would like to be involved in this year's NPCC Innovation and Digital Summit, taking place in Merseyside on the 20th to the 22nd of October, scan the QR code, head over to the PDS website and fill the form in. What we're going to do, we've got seriously a lot of people want to be at this event. We're going to be making sure that we've got good representation from a range of roles in every force to attend that. So it's really important you pre-register so we can start getting those tickets out to you in the next couple of weeks. We're actually building the registration platform starting tomorrow to get it open, so we're ready for you next week, and you can get involved in that to move forward. So please do register, and if you are a supplier and wanting to be involved, there's going to be very few access tickets for suppliers who aren't involved in sponsoring, so we are nearly sold out of all the sponsorship packages. We will sell out, but if you want to get in touch, please head over to the website as well and we'll pick up that. Just a final reminder on the next slide around the Emergency Tech Show. See the shows that we're doing, the Summit and the Emergency Tech Show, as a bit of a partnership approach. Some of the things that we would love to get onto the agenda for the Summit will get onto the agenda at the Emergency Tech Show, and vice versa. We're going to be making sure there's lots of ways you can access and talk to the teams about what's coming up. David, I don't think we've got any more questions, but if people do want to ask anything else, they can head over to the PDS Contact Us page on the website. Again, we'll pop that slide up for you. People can put a question in there. We've got a nice process to be able to manage that and bring it on. It's the next slide, I think, Mike. There we go. There's a nice simple contact form. If you make sure it's clear it's about the T-PAP process, we'll be able to get that across to the team to get any responses. Similarly, if you're in a force, your business engagement manager can help to signpost you to the right people to give you the right knowledge. David, I want to thank you for committing to do this webinar. It is an important subject. We've had a really great deal of questions and comments through on this, which is exactly why we do this. This is a bit of a confusing space for lots of people. We can revisit these sort of things at any time, but please, thanks for your time today. It's been a really good webinar, lots of interaction in there. Colleagues, please do give us your feedback on the webinars. On the next slide, there's a QR code for you to be able to give feedback, suggestions of what we want to do. And of course, on the next slide, you've got the replay of the webinars anytime. We did a really good one with the police problem book last week with the OPSCA. So please catch up on that as well. And we'll be pushing more details of more events coming up very soon. David, Mike, thanks for your time today. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.